Welcome, everybody, back to The Buzz. It's our weekly video podcast where we talk all things high school sports, maybe a little bit higher levels too. If we have a local in college or in the pros or things like that. Let me move my screen down just a little bit. And we like to break down teams, themes, trends, all the good stuff that make high school sports in this region a lot of fun. We try to have a little flavor and humor with it. We don't take it too serious. We don't take ourselves too seriously. I'll be joined shortly by my friend and editor at the Sacramento Bee, Jim Patrick. We have no Cameron Salerno here today. All of his groupies are peeling off now. He's got an appointment to get his head examined, so to speak. No, really, it's dental work. He's got a dental appointment, and I've got pliers, but he declined. So kids these days, right? Items of interest to discuss today on the show include Amir Britton, our Sacramento Bee Boys Basketball Player of the Year from Elk Grove High School. He wins some state basketball honors through Cal High Sports. We'll talk about that. And he's got some scholarship interest growing there as well. Jim and I will talk about that and why it's so hard for some of these kids not to get scholarships. We've touched on it before, but we'll touch on it again. It's not just exclusive to basketball players or boys. It's a numbers game. We're going to offer right now for a second some hearty kudos to Jason Siderud of Granite Bay. He is as good of a two-sport coach as we have anywhere in this section. He was this week honored by the California Coaches Association as the 2021-22 State Coach of the Year for girls golf. He led the Granite Bay Grizzlies to a state Division I championship. He's also a terrific boys basketball coach, led the Grizzlies to the Sac Joaquin Section Division II finals against Grant, which repeated. So it's a great honor for Coach Siderud, who's one of the good guys in the business. And we always stress, hey, play multiple sports if you're in high school. Well, he's a guy who coaches multiple sports, so kudos to that. Before we bring in Jim Patrick, let's have a little fun here. Let's break down the best boys basketball players in regional history. That's the Sacramento immediate area. Why? Well, why not? Also because Matt Barnes of Del Campo has been doing some really good work on ESPN radio during the NBA playoffs. I have a story this week on that. And Matt is certainly on our list, as you'll see here. So let's take a quick peek here. Ryan Anderson. We're going to go in alphabetical order. And this is based on high school, college, and pro experience. And so you'll see a lot of guys who didn't make this list. We can't get 500 guys into a short list. And so we're going all levels here. Ryan Anderson, Oak Ridge, went to Cal, 6'10" shooter, played 10 years or so in the NBA, was a first-round pick. Matt Barnes, just talked about him. He was a 4-year starter at Del Campo, played at UCLA, 14 years in the NBA, 9 different teams, a ringer, a tough guy. Not everybody liked him. I have a story this week where he says, hey, I'm 50-50, half love me, half don't. And he kind of revels in that. Bill Cartwright might be the most famous one on this list. Elk Grove High School State Player of the Year, 1974, 1975, goes to USF, helps them do a number 1 national ranking, number 2 pick in a draft in 1979. Behind Magic Johnson. Maybe he's the 3rd pick, but he was a top 3. Chicago Bulls, 3 NBA championships. Marquise Chris helps Pleasant Grove as a sophomore win a state Division I basketball championship, goes up to the University of Washington, one and done. Is still in the NBA. He's a 6'9" guy with a lot of skills. James Donaldson. James Donaldson is the most unsung guy in all this list. Burbank High School, University of Washington, 7-footer, played 14 years in the NBA. He was so uncoordinated. As a high school kid, he pleaded his coach, Chuck Calhoun, to not let anybody see the practices. He didn't even know if he could run and shoot and without falling over. He got better. He certainly did. Jim Eakins of Encina in the mid-'60s with a state player of the year, played in the ABA and won some ABA championships. Isaac Fontaine was a state player of the year at Jesuit, 1994 by Cal High Sports. Led some of the best basketball teams in regional history, set scoring records at the University of Washington State, played pro ball for years. Darnell Hillman, he had the big fro, late 60s with Johnson, played at San Jose State, played in the ABA, won the first dunk contest in pro basketball history in 1977. 76 or so. So really cool. Kevin Johnson might be the other biggest recognized name here. Well before he was the mayor of Sacramento, he led the state in scoring at Sac High, played at Cal, multiple-time All-Star in the NBA, mostly with the Phoenix Suns, later became the mayor of Sacramento. DeMarcus Nelson, Sheldon, state's all-time leading scorer, 3 years at Vallejo High, senior year at Sheldon, some 20 years ago, played at Duke, played well at Duke, and played some 12 years in pro ball across the country. DJ Wilson, another first-round pick out of Capital Christian, University of Michigan, still in the NBA, 6'10". So if you're 6'10", you got some skills, you might get drafted. So that's our list. We'll bounce it off of Jim Patrick here in a second, see if he recognizes any of these names. In fact, let's bring Jim in, and we welcome Jim aboard. Jim, you're not from around here. You're newer here, but any of those names resonate? That any of those guys you recognize?
I don't know how you don't talk up KJ more. I mean, KJ, 3-time NBA All-Star. He averaged almost 18 points a game. I just know this off the top of my head. I didn't Google it while you were talking, Joe. That's just how famous KJ is.
Knowledge.
I hear. No, I totally Googled it while you were talking. I didn't know his career essentially ended at age 30, age 30, 31, something like that. So, I mean, this is the guy that maybe it's speaking to my age, right? Like I was a kid pretending I was Kevin Johnson back in the early 90s, working on free throws, bombing 3-pointers, and in my mind, shaking and baking defenders.
Or dunking over Dikembe Mutombo, which was not likely, but
no.
I remember when I was covering a lot of the NBA, Jim, I went to Phoenix and he came back. I think he stepped away from basketball and came back, and they were ready to play the Kings in the playoffs. And he talked about after a while you just, if you're a speed quickness guy, all of a sudden you're not fast anymore, and he knew it then. For 10 years you're quick and nobody could stop you, and all of a sudden you can't get by anybody. And I when
my StreamYard is frozen.
Picked up a ball for the first time in like 8 years, and I see you, I hear you.
Okay. I didn't see you. I didn't hear you. I saw a technical difficulties screen. Madness happening here on the Buzz, Joe. Yeah.
And so he kept in shape a little bit doing that.
Do I need to take over for Joe is the question.
I'm getting that. And there we go. God, that was my best material, and I lost it all. So, Jim, that was my best material, and then it just goes through a wash. It's just it's outrageous. So,
I mean, I only need to hear every other word you say. Anyway,
those were the winning lotto numbers that we just read off. So, good luck to everybody, and we wish you well. So, no, we were talking about the best basketball players. Let's throw that graphic up there again, Jim Silver, and we were talking about. Kevin Johnson, who at the end of his career, he just knew he wasn't fast anymore.
Yeah.
To stay at the NBA level. Some other guys. And of course, maybe the most famous, he's certainly the most accomplished player in this region for battle is Bill Cartwright. 3 NBA championships as a starting center for the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, their first three-peat, and then later coached in the NBA, including the Bulls. Is now at USF, his alma mater, as a goodwill ambassador of sorts. And when Elk State basketball championship last month, Jim, he was watching on a live stream and was texting his old coaches and a Cartwright gym. They call the rowdy students the Cartwright crazy. So pretty good list. We don't have Hall of Famers, but we've got dunkers, we've got scorers, we've got guys who won NBA championships. So not too bad.
And I don't mean to, be dismissive of the list at all. It is not a list of guys that I knew all of beforehand. I know Matt Barnes, I know Bill Cartwright, and I know KJ. But and Marquise Chris rings a bell. Matt Barnes rings a bell, but there's a few names on here that, like Jim Eakins. No offense to Jim, I just fellow gym name. We love the gyms here in the
Yes.
Buzz. But
Well, he was an ABA two-time champion, so he was in the 60s and 70s, and just also a reminder that Encino was a powerhouse before the school declining enrollment and things like that. And I remember catching up to guys like DeMarcus Nelson and Isaac Fontaine as they tried to make it into the NBA. It's just so hard. Jim, first it's hard to get a scholarship, and then it's hard to start and excel in college, and then to even get in pro ball, it's really hard. And for some of these guys like DeMarcus Nelson, he played some 13, 14 years old. They make good money. They don't make NBA money, but they make some pretty good money. So that's kind of a fun list. And we got a story this week on Matt Barnes and how he's transitioned from being kind of the ringer, tough guy that you either love because he's on your side or you despise because he's on the other side, and what his role now is as a media guy. And I think he's really good. I'm impressed with what he's doing. And so that's what kind of made me think about all that. So a guy who might make this list someday is Amir Britton. We touched on him earlier, Jim. He was our boys basketball player of the year at Elk Grove. He just got Cal High State Division II Player of the Year honors. Cal High is a decades-long website or newsletter that honors and recognizes guys. There's Amir right there, 4-year starter, state champion, gritty, tough. We've talked about. I get asked this every week, Jim. Is he going anywhere? Who's looking at it? Well, he's got all the skills and the tenacity and toughness, but it's a numbers game. These schools don't have boatloads of scholarships, so he's probably going to land in the Division II level. There's no shame in that. Chico State is all over him. Chico State's had a lot of local guys over the years, so we're rooting for Amir Britton, and just a good guy who's earned everything he's worked for. So kudos to him.
And real quick, Joe, part of that, my understanding, part of the reason there's just not a lot of scholarships.
You didn't see him this year.
No, sorry, your stream froze and then you unfroze, and now you're fine. I wanted to address one of the reasons there's no scholarships. We haven't really talked about this, but there's a backlog from the pandemic of guys that got that extra year of eligibility at the NCAA level. So they didn't graduate, or they did graduate, but they stuck around to do postdoctorate or postgraduate studies or whatever and play one more year. And there's been this backlog that is still working its way through the system. There's just not a ton of open spots up in the NCAA D1 level as players are shifting around. And maybe this is, if Amiri Britton can't find a spot, Joe, maybe it's a sign of what I've been sort of fearing is going to happen, which is because the transfer portal, it's going to turn into like single A, double A, triple A at the NCAA level, where you got to work your way up unless you're an obvious D1 stud guy. Coach would rather have a proven guy, maybe. I'm not saying it's working that way for sure, but if Amiri can't land a spot,
right.
What hope do we have?
Right, Jim, and you're spot on. And the transfer portal is the new animal. And what is that for people who don't know? It's if you're a Division I college athlete and you don't like your playing time, or you don't get along with a coach, or you're just ready for a change, you could enter your name into a transfer portal, and other programs could look into you. So but the portal is getting full. And all of these kids in football and basketball jumped in the transfer portal, and there's way too many kids than there are offers from other programs. So some of them are going to wind up with nothing. So they'll go from recruits with multiple offers to maybe not getting anything. And so that's interesting. But you're right about Amir Britton. If he doesn't get a scholarship, what does that mean? Well, that's how competitive it is. It just really is. And and you and I are softball fans around this area, Jim, as we segue into softball and this area, as we take a look at our
Joe, your screen
softball players signed. I don't know. Am I frozen again? I see myself moving just fine. So,
it's fine. This is the stop and start version of the Buzz. The Buzz
it is. Oh, but we're talking about softball. And for years, Jim, for some 30 years, we've had boatloads of softball girls get scholarships, and it hasn't slowed down. And a lot of these girls that we talk about that are in our top player polls and our rankings are going somewhere. So that's pretty cool. You have a poll this week on who's the area's top softball pitcher, and you could have had 40 of them. And so these girls, but They're leading players, they're getting recruited, and they're going to be the reason why these teams roar into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk about some of the top teams in this area without talking about the pitching. St. Francis has Hope Jenkins, who we've written about and featured in videos. That's her on the right there with her sister Grace. Hope was partially responsible for St. Francis's big win earlier this week. They took a 2-0 win, I believe it was. Yeah, 2-0. They beat Elk Grove, and Elk Grove is one of our top teams, and they've got Aisa Silva, who's one of the top arms in the air. And there's Aisa Silva right there with their coach, so Amanda Buck. The arms are prominent in this area. The poll took me all of about 10 minutes to put together when I had the idea, because there's just so many girls to talk about in this area that chuck the ball well, that they're Division I recruits. And one more I wanted to mention from Roseville. I remember her last name now, Michaela Johnson, I believe it is. Yeah, there she is, chucking the ball. Shout out to Lenny's Pictures for helping us out with this picture. She's one of the top pitchers in the area, and has that Malaya Johnson.
It's like a powerful pitch. Wow.
Oh, yeah. She's fun to watch. Actually, I mean, all these, you don't have to understand, or you don't have to watch a ton of girls softball to go to a game and be impressed by some of these kids, Joe. Hope Jenkins throws 68, 69 miles an hour, which isn't a lot relative to Major League Baseball pitching, but the distance from the mound to the plate is much shorter. So it's pretty incredible to watch what they can do with the ball, both in location and changing speeds, and even, throwing some curves in there. It's very, there's just a ton of talent in the softball pitching. And really that's what differentiates at the top level of our rankings. The teams that are in our top 10 are teams that have very good pitching.
Yeah, and the other thing about these girls this year and over the years is they do a remarkable job, Jim, of just balancing their lives. They're terrific athletes. A lot of them are terrific scholars. It's important for them to be terrific students. They're involved on campus, involved in the community. It's like, well, how do they budget all that time? It's something that's always been the norm, and softball is so competitive around here. So let's take a look at our softball rankings. These are done by our good friend Pete DeFore. He's got a top 20 list. You can see the whole list on sacb.com. But here's a sample size. Jim, why don't you, we were talking off the air, who's got the better league? Is it the Delta League with Elko, Sheldon?
You're just setting me up to say that the Delta League is clearly, it's the Delta League. I mean, you don't have this is maybe the rare sport, Joe, softball, where we don't have a Sierra Foothill team up in the top. We don't have a top 5 team anyway. That's Sierra Foothill. You got Folsom and Rockland in there, but I mean the Delta.
Well, Del Oro's Sierra Foothill League, but you don't have right. Del Oro's Sierra Foothill League. Then 2, 3, and 4 are from the Delta. And Folsom's Sierra Foothill. I see you. Yeah.
I think, and in the Delta too, you get your Pleasant Groves knocking off ranked teams, or you get your unranked teams in the Delta that are knocking off ranked teams in the Delta. So it's really a madhouse down there in the Delta. The SFL is obviously the largest schools in the area, and therefore they have some of the best sports team, right? You have more kids, you have more talent.
That really is how you boil it down. Because Jim, people ask me, what's the big difference about enrollment? I said, well, if you're at Sheldon and you have 2,700 students, 2,700 students compared to Colfax, which has 605, that's a lot of people. Oh, okay, and that's like in basketball, if you get 2,800 students, that's that many more chances of having a 6'8" guy as compared to at Colfax or Bear River or East Nicholas. But, let's take a look at those rankings again. So number 10 is East Nicholas of the northern section, small school, powerhouse, plays all these bigger schools. Number 12 on his list, it's not here, but you can see it on sacb.com, is Sutter. Those two teams play today. They have full Division I scholarship kids. So it doesn't matter the size of the school. It matters the size of the ability.
Right, and Pete's got Marysville in his top 20. We're not going to go through all 20 teams, but we got Marysville in there. So those schools that are to the north, I don't mean to say north section schools necessarily, but just the schools that are to the north of the metro areas seem to have some really good talent up there. I'm not really sure why that is, but more so than in any other sport, I would argue.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
and East Nicholas has about 2 kids in the school. It's really amazing. So East Nicholas has a shortstop, Remington Hewitt, who's going to Oregon on a full scholarship. And then Sutter has a pitchy, Riley Wickham, who's going to Cal State Northwood. So again, Jim, doesn't matter the size of the school. Wow.
And here we are talking about
kudos
pitching
for Pete for ranking those teams.
Yeah, with Riley Wickham, I think
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
Joe, I think your stream has seen better days,
as much
man.
as we stretch and hydrate, it has. I could hear you fine. I don't know if you could hear me. Can you hear me okay?
It stops and it starts, and when it restarts, our viewers are getting like 10 seconds of Joe talking crammed into 1 second. It's like a fast forwarded tape type of thing. That's dating myself, right? I'm talking about tapes. Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before this show veers completely into the ditch, let's throw up those baseball rankings. These are done by Cameron Salerno. Cameron is getting
well, Cameron's showing his favoritism with Wood Creek right there at number 1. Cam's a Wood Creek graduate.
Now, Rowe lost the season opener to Rockland. Yes, and it's blatant conflict of interest. Franklin, the record didn't show up here. Same with McClatchy. They didn't forfeit all their games. They were in good standing. Franklin is 7-5 in Delta, doing well in Delta League. McClatchy's right on down the line, and you see Jesuits coming on strong. Oak Ridge, why would you have them ranked at 10-9? Well, strength of schedule. A lot of these teams play pretty good non-league schedules. And let's take a look at Vannon really quick here, Jim. Vannon won a state football championship. Football teams rolling along, baseball teams rolling along. This is a school in Fairfield that is just rolling right now. It's been around forever, so the Vikings are feeling it this academic. So we got large schools, medium size, and a little bit smaller. So Cameron's top 25. The full list is on sacb.com. If you want to give that a look. I wanted to mention again, Jim, your softball pitching poll. That is online if you want to every day on sacb.com.
Yeah.
Did you lose me again?
People are fired up and voting vociferously on the pitching poll, so as they should be.
How about that?
It's funny to see people arguing back and forth. I've gotten DMs on Twitter about the poll. I've gotten a couple of emails about the poll. People are fired up about this poll. I guess I did.
I love it, and it's fun, and we do a poll on what was the worst technical disaster on the Buzz. Was it this week's show? Was it
it was this week's show. So. It was definitely this week's show.
It definitely is. I don't know what it is. I blame David Caraccio, who's one of our producers, who had the nerve to take a vacation. He's out of state.
He took the good internet with him.
Pulling wires. He did. He took the good Wi-Fi. So there we go. We had a rundown on what's going on with Amir Britton, baseball, softball. Softball's going on. Let's go back to softball for a second. So there's a lot of tournaments going on last week, this week. That's where a lot of teams pile on. A lot of baseball teams were out of state or out of area last week, I should say. Elk Grove was in a San Diego tournament. And McClatchy was in a tournament in Southern California. There was the Boris Classic, named after Scott Boris, the longtime baseball
agent. He was an agent.
Super agent from Elk Grove High School, but it got rained out. And we will have playoffs by next month, Jim. It'll be fast and furious. Just warm up. We'll have some action.
There's only like 3 weeks of the regular season left.
Did you hear me? Yeah, no, it's coming on strong, and
NorCal
we'll see how it goes. For baseball and softball, for the first time, we will have regional baseball and softball playoffs. That means all section champions will advance to a regional round. We'll have to break that down. I don't know how many teams will advance. How many games can you play? It's certainly going to have to be single elimination. Otherwise, we'd go right into mid-July. So we'll. I think it's come to that point where baseball is so good. And I think shorten the schedule a little bit. They didn't take games off the schedule. They just started the season a little bit earlier. Because for years,
Oof. It's possible Joe has gone into
softball. So I think those. Or are you just giving me the?
Yeah, this isn't going well. I'm gonna ask any of our viewers if they have if they have gigabit internet service to bring it over to your house.
He might be
I'm gonna ask them to.
All right,
to
there
run
he
a
is.
line. We're wrapping up here. The show is in tatters at the side of the road, Joe.
It might be. What we're going to do, we're going to save face. We did everything you could to keep the show afloat as we tried to.
Okay, I'm going to give it the big wrap up since Joe is apparently suffering from technical difficulties. Thank you to Joe Davidson. It's his show, everybody. I am just wrapping it up for him. Jim Silva was our technical mastery behind the scenes. Thank you to Pete Dufar for his rankings. For Cameron Salerno for getting his teeth pulled today, so we didn't have to witness this attempt at a show. It was really good planning on his part. We're looking for a barber to shave off Cam's hair. If you're willing to donate your services, if you could just DM Cam on Twitter and let him know that you're available, he would appreciate that. That's all we got for today, folks. Tune in next week when hopefully Joe has internet service to his house that is functional. Thanks again. Have a good day, everybody. Have a good week.